Chapter 10. Wipe your paws on the mat. As soon as I stepped into the crab shell, Claus called out, "Wipe your paws on the mat, okay? And remember to be careful on the stairs. They're steep. And don't slip." I just waxed the floor. I wiped my paws on the mat. I was careful on the stairs and I didn't slip on the floor. But my tail got hooked on the coat rack and it crashed over. The crab shied and pushed me toward the table and chairs. "Sit there and don't move," he ordered, sculling off to the kitchen. When he returned, he handed me a glass of yellow liquid with a straw and a little umbrella on it. I was worried that drink might be some weird fish-flavored concoction, but I didn't want to be rude, so I took a tiny sip. "It's lemonade," I cried, shocked. "What did you expect, clam bile?" Santa Claus snorted. Then he stuck a map of the Desert of Ice and Years under my nose and said, "You need to study this finger magic. There are tons of spice around." "So that's how the desert got its name," I cried. "Maybe there's hope for you yet," the crab commented dryly. "Anyways," he continued, "I've got an idea. You can communicate in a secret code so no spies can understand. I'll teach you." Then he pinched my snout, made maces, smacked my head, and shouted meaningless phrases in my ears. What a nightmare! "Now let's practice," he cried, smacking me on the head with a claw. Someone's listening? Well done, sir," he said. Then the crab shouted, "Careful!" I looked around worried because I didn't remember what that actually meant. Everything's going well. "Cheese and crackers. Don't worry, we'll be okay," Santa Claus said confidently. As we left the Cheddar house a few minutes later, the scorching sun greeted us outside, and the sand burned my paws. The landscape was harsh and rocky. Even worse, I constantly felt as though I was being watched. Were there really spies all around us? Once I even tripped on a rock that seemed to have been suspiciously moved to make me fall. We stumbled along the stumbling trail. "Ow, ow, ow!" Then we continued through the canyon of fiery winds, smoke and Swiss spits. "Oh, where's a fire extinction when you needed one?" Next we crossed petrified bone mountains. Were they the bones of unlucky travelers? Gup! We scaled a Mount Skull, a steep mountain that's shaped like a giant, you guessed it, skull bubblegum. Finally, we reached the road to nowhere. The road led to the heart of the desert. The place isolated. There were no trees, no lakes, and no living creatures. Where else would a road to nowhere lead? In fact, the area was called Vacant Valley. Seriously, I couldn't make this stuff up. That night I fell into a deep sleep filled with nightmares. I woke up down, exhausted and worried. Took deep breaths, I told myself, but the air was so hot. I'd nearly burnt the inside of my nostrils. Chapter 11. Who Dares to Challenge Me? We continued walking until we arrived at a vast stretch of sand and rocks, with clusters of round, thorny bushes. It looks like we're in the field of thingamabobs. The field of thorns. Start running or you'll never run again, Chatterclaws warned me. Just then, the wind picked up, and I heard an angry whisper. Who dares to challenge me? My teeth began to chatter. It had to be the guardian of the second enchanted charm. He or she was testing me. The thorny bushes started chasing me, and I began running as fast as I could. Rancid rat hairs! Who would have guessed shrubbery could be so evil? With a terrific leap, I landed on a rocky ledge where the thorny bushes couldn't reach me. Phew! I was saved by a whisker. I wanted to rest, but Chatterclaws kept moving. After hours of walking, we arrived at an enormous clearing as large as a stadium, set off by high rocky walls. It was the stone giant arena. Right then the rocks began rolling in the middle of the arena, and little by little they formed something that resembled a monstrous warrior made of stone. A big round boulder placed itself at the top of the monster, forming its head. Then the warrior turned towards me and thundered, "Who dares to challenge me?" As if I hadn't guessed, Chatterclaws yelled, "It's another test, Knight. Don't think about how big and strong he is and how little and weak you are. And don't think about how he is a warrior who is used to fighting and you're just a scholar with puny muscles." The monster rumbled towards me with steps that made the ground tremble, and I fled, squeaking, "I want to live!" Just then, the crab produced a rope from his shell and lassoed a cactus sticking up on the other side of the path. As the monster took a step forward, Chatterclaws pulled the rope taut. The monster had tripped. For one terrifying second, the immense stone giant loomed over me, but right at the last moment, I managed to jump to one side. The giant fell to the ground, exploding into 1,000 stones. Before I could even thank the crab, another voice roared, "Who dares to challenge me?" Seriously? Couldn't a mouse catch a break? I raised my snout to the sky, and the scene in front of me made my jaw drop. I realized that the voice was coming from a terrifying tornado. The sand swirled in a spiral that grew bigger and bigger until the vortex took the shape of a face with a wide open mouth and menacing eyes. Before I could even move, the mouth started to close and a swirl of sand surrounded me, blinding me. But just then Chatterclaws threw open the door of his shell and shouted, "Get in here if you want to live!" I jumped inside and he closed the door behind me. Whew! I was saved by a whisker. Outside, the sandstorm raged on, but inside we were safe. The crab swept up the grains of sand that I'd wrecked in, muttering, "You forgot to wet your paws." Yep, that crab was a real cleaning fanatic. Chapter 12. Water, water, water. We waited a long while in the Chatter house until the wind stopped howling, the sand stopped swirling, and the storm stopped raging. Once there was silence, we peeked outside. What a sight! The sand from the storm had covered everything, and we couldn't tell which direction was which. We started to wander under the burning sun, getting even more tired and discouraged by the minute. When Claus finished all the water from inside his house, he burst into tears. He cried so hard I let him drink the water in my canteen. What can I say? It's hot to watch a sea creature cry. "Thanks," the crab said, guzzling the precious liquid. Finally, we decided to rest in the shade of a rock sticking out of the sand. Even though we were in the shade, my face still felt like it was on fire. It was so hot. I closed my eyes and tried to pretend I was somewhere else, relaxing by a babbling brook, splashing in the water at like peaceful pools. But when I opened my eyes, all I saw was a hot desert. I was about to drink the last drop of water from my canteen when I noticed a plant in front of me. Looking at it told me that it was thirstier than I was. Its stem was drooping, its leaves were shriveled, and the flowers floating at the top was wilted. Filled with pity, I poured the last drop of water onto the plant. To my surprise, little by little, the plant started to recover. Sounded like a whisper coming from the soil. The whisper was like a chorus of thousands of tiny voices roaring together. "Congratulations, you've passed my tests. The bushes, the stone giant, and all the rest. Now I will help you. So listen closely to what I say." I realized that the voice was coming from all the grains of sand that made up the desert. Talking sand, every stone giants. What was next? Dancing cacti? I pinched myself to make sure I wasn't hallucinating from myself from the heat. Then Claus explained, "It's the guardian of the second charm." A moment later, the voices continued. "To find the second charm, you need to look around. The answer is beneath you. It's right here in the ground." Suddenly, the soil beneath us started to rise, and we rose along with it, up, up, up. Then we realized that we were standing on the head of an enormous green tortoise. The tortoise opened her mouth and yawned so deeply we practically crashed to the ground. Then she said in a groggy voice, "Who has wakened the guardian of the second charm from her 100-year sleep?" Wow, 100 years. Talk about a deep sleep. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love catching a few as much as the next rodent. But 100 years really takes the cheesecake. Anyways, where was I? Oh yes, I quickly showed the tortoise the ring with Blossom's symbol and explained that I was searching for the 7 charms. The tortoise stared at me. "You're an adventurer with great courage and a great heart. I know because you passed my tests and given your last drop of water to a dying plant. Here is the second charm, but you must promise to defend it from all enemies, especially the Wizard of the Black Pearl. Thank you, I said, slipping the charm into the chain with the first one. 2 down, 5 to go, I thought. As if she were reading my thoughts, the tortoise said, you will find the next charm in Rainbow Valley.